Welcome back, guys. It's craft time. In today's video, we are going to be playing around with the Dollar Tree transfers and the Dollar Tree Cork adhesive paper. I'm going to kind of walk you through how to use them, or how I used them, and my thoughts about them. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, the blanks that I'm going to be using for today, I have thrifted. I know we all love Dollar Tree. We all love to save a buck. We all love to get something for not a lot of money. I understand that. But let me tell you that your goal every single time is to be able to make it look like it did not come from Dollar Tree. Okay? That's my goal. That's what I want to do. That should be end game for everybody. Now, that being said, yes, they have great blanks. They have some great stuff that you can use. I use it in a lot of my crafts, don't get me wrong. However, you can get blanks for way better quality for not that much more money if you're willing to put in a little extra effort. That's why I personally thrift. Anytime I see any signs or a good board or anything that would make a good sign, I grab that, I pick it up, I put it in my stash for whenever I may need it. So that's where these frames came from today. And so that's what I'm going to be using for the projects. I also have a wood round that I had previously painted up for another project that I'm going to be using for today's video. And I'm only going to be doing 3 separate things. So let's go ahead and start with cleaning them up, taking off stickers, sanding anything that needs to be sanded, washing them down, and then we can start in with our transfer projects. So the transfers that I have from Dollar Tree, I have a handful of them. Some I picked up last spring, some I've picked up more recently. Basically, any of them with the black background are more recent. I have several of them. I have used some of them before. I did a book stack that I think turned out really cute that I used with the gold lettering and gold florals. And then I cut up the other ones with the black words, but I never ended up doing anything with those. So today I'm going to be using the spring scene that I have, and then also the gold feathers, but they also have like plants and leaves and greenery, seashells, like a sea type or ocean related one, and then also some fun like what are those called? Dandelions? Is that what they're called? The ones that you blow? Who knows? Not me. Okay, so they have a good assortment. I will tell you the trick to finding these is to look behind the other, like you'll have the rack of stickers and all of this. Look behind the rows of stickers, because usually whoever's putting them out, at least in my area, they just grab a handful of them and stick them on there, and you don't know what's behind there. And that's typically how I have found all of my transfers. They're not usually in the front. They're usually tucked back behind somewhere and I have to do some digging, but sometimes you just gotta look a little further and it's worth the effort. All right, I had found these 2 little shelf sitters, actually not at the same time, it just happened to work that they were a perfect match for each other. Typically, I would start by sanding this down to get the wording of the paint down to one level in the front of this, but I'm not gonna be worried about it because it's gonna be so busy that I don't think you're gonna see through it. I'm going to go ahead and paint them black. I want to distress them back down and I want that black to show through. So I'm going to make sure that I have an even layer of black paint consistently all over both of these pieces. That way, when I do go to sand it down, I'm just getting the black color and none of the already distressed or the wording to come through. So I'm just using black acrylic paint for this. Once it has dried, I'm going to seal it with polyacrylic. The reason I am sealing it at this stage is so that the black does not bleed through whenever I do my next step, because I'm going to be painting it white with chalk paint. I am doing a very rough paint on this. Usually I try to make sure all my brush strokes are very even. I do more than one coat, but I want this look to be very kind of distressed and kind of like that old feel to it. So I am keeping my brush strokes in the same direction, but I'm not worried about any uneven strokes or anything like that. I think that's going to add the extra character that I need after I put on the transfers. So I'm going to paint the entire front and sides. I did set this down on some contact paper, or you can do masking tape on the back. I think the back of your projects are just as important as the front. You don't want somebody to come along and look at your product, pick it up, think, oh, it's beautiful, and turn it over to have the messy back just showing that I feel like it just shows that you don't put as much effort into your project as you should. So I try to keep my backs nice and clean and put together. So I just used the contact paper, painted the sides, the face of it with the white chalk paint. And then I let that dry and I was ready to distress. So I went ahead and just used a 240 grit sandpaper. It's super fine, but I didn't want to use a really rough one and take it down too far because I felt like if I used the really rough sandpaper, it would take it back down to the natural color and cut straight through my black. So I just went around the edges until I was happy with my distressed look, and I wiped it down, cleaned up all of the particles, and I sealed it again with polyacrylic. Now that that's done, it is time to use our transfers. So again, I'm using this spring sheet. I picked this up last year, but I have still seen this in the store, so I'm pretty sure you can still get it. Now on the back, it will walk you through the steps. So it has the steps right there on the back for you to follow, but I'm going to show you in this video because I'm a visual person. So the first thing you want to do is obviously remove it from the paper and then pick out how you want the layout. So you can put it down all on one sheet, just how they have it. I am choosing to cut it up into two because obviously I have two pieces, but I want one of them to be vertical and one of them to be horizontal. So I'm going to pick and choose what I want and how I want it laid out. So I'm just going to take scissors and very carefully cut through the different pieces that I want. You can kind of see where the transfer ends if you really look at it. So I try to cut as close to that line as possible, just depending on what else is around it, what I'm trying to cut out or leave in. So just take your time with this. This is the fun part. This is where you're going to be creative. So I cut down all of the parts that I wanted, and then before I started laying them out on top of the blocks to kind of get an idea of what I wanted my collage to look like. I do this with all my projects. The more you plan ahead, which don't get me wrong, I'm not a super planner, so I will jump into a project not really knowing exactly where it's going. But as I go through the steps, like this step here, I like to lay things out, visualize them. Okay, how's this gonna look? Because that's gonna keep you from having to redo things and making a lot of mistakes. So lay them out, kind of get an idea, and then we're ready to put them on. To put them on, all you have to do is remove the backing. So some of the backings are solid colors, some of them are not. So with this one it is, but you'll know the front because it will be the thinner piece. So the back will be a little bit thicker. You just pull them apart, it starts to come apart pretty easily, and then you position it and lay it flat on whatever your object is, and then you just rub it. So I'm going to be using a plastic palette knife that I have. You can use your finger, you can use your fingernail, you can use a credit card or anything like that. I would suggest probably using something flat like I am, like a credit card or something, just to make it a little easier and just to make sure you're getting a really secure, nice hard push on it. So you're just gonna rub that all over the top. Just give it a good rub on every area, all of the little details, all the way to the edge, but just be careful that you're not scratching your project. And then you're ready to peel that plastic or that paper part away. So start on just one side and very slowly lift up and watch and be careful. And you'll see if any spots are not sticking. If that spot's not sticking, it's not a big deal. Lower it back down some, rub that area, pull it back up, and it should come off. With this particular transfer, it came off very easy. There were some parts where I could literally just run my finger over it and it would stick to the piece. So that was really awesome, nice and easy to do. I think this transfer is beautiful. You can layer it, like I've layered some of them over top of each other and they stuck no problem. So you can really kind of have your own creative touch to this by laying them out however you want in the different patterns and things. So I love how this is. I got everything down the way I wanted it to, and then I just took the palm of my hand as flat as I could and I pushed down across the top of each piece just to make sure there are no pieces that are loose. And then I went ahead and sealed it again. I'm not sure if you have to seal these transfers in, but it would just make me better or make me feel better knowing it's not just gonna scratch off for someone else or in transit to one of my craft shows or something. So I did also take a palette knife and kind of scrape the sides to where my edges were distressed on any transfer part that stuck to that part, just to kind of make it look distressed too, like it was all done at one time. Or that it aged together, I guess is better way to explain it. So I think these turned out super cute. I would love to know what you guys think. Have you used this transfer? Are you gonna go get this transfer? I think you should. It's super cute. It was super easy to do, and I think it turned out really, really well. I really liked this transfer, how easy it was to do. Like I said, it came off pretty easily. Just be careful if you're like setting it down on a table or something. Don't take the back off before you're ready, because then you could accidentally mess it up and then we'll all be sad. So project number 2, I'm going to be using that wood round that I had previously painted it up, just practicing and playing around with the iridescent Mod Podge spray. So it's like nice and shiny and glittery, but I didn't really end up using it for a project because I had another round I had painted up for that particular project. So it needs a home and we're going to find one. So I created this saying on my Cricut and I love it. It's something that I had in my daughter's nursery whenever she was little, and I just love this quote. So I cut this out. I use contact paper. It's not the easiest to work with at all times, but it's a very cheap way if you're using a one-time stencil. If you have the patience just to kind of sit and mess with it a little bit, I wouldn't suggest it for beginners, but if you're looking for a cheap way to make stencils, save some money, it just takes a little bit more effort and work put into it, then I would suggest this to you. However, on this particular project, it did have a really hard time sticking. I am thinking that's because of the little glitter pieces that were in this project. So I did have to use some of my masking tape transfer tape and tape down the edges to try to keep it in place, because it was trying to shift, because contact paper isn't super sticky, which is why I like to use it too, because it won't peel your paint, but it was causing problems and not wanting to stick enough. So I do have this masking transfer tape. I just got this a couple months ago. I've only used it a few times, but I love it. It is just sticky enough to keep your vinyl in place, but not sticky enough to rip the paint off of whatever you're working when you remove it, to fight you whenever you try to remove it. I hate whenever you have, you know, your vinyl down, everything's in place, you go to remove the transfer tape, the paint underneath starts peeling, even if you've let it set and cure, even if you've sealed it, even, you know, like, it happens to all of us and it's the most frustrating thing. And then, or you have to sit there for 20 minutes because it's not removing itself from the vinyl and you have to take every little piece and get it off. I really enjoyed this. I did just start up my affiliate links again, so I have a lot of the products that I use all of the time linked in the description, so you can go check that out. The masking tape transfer stuff that I am using is down there as well if you are interested. I personally really like it, and I do use it more than once. I either just wrap it back around the roll, or I keep the backing of whatever, like the vinyl or whatever, that paper, and I just stick it to that. So you can use it more than once. I think I've only used it twice, but hey, reusing it at any time saves you a little bit of money. So moving forward, now that I have my stencil down in place, like I said, the contact paper's not sticking really well, so I'm kind of maneuvering the little pieces, making sure everything is lined up really well. And then I'm going to put down a layer of Mod Podge. I do this for all of my stencils because it's not going to bleed out whenever I put my color on top. So the Mod Podge will kind of seal up those edges of your stencil to make sure that whenever you put your paint on, the color is not bleeding out and causing you all kinds of issues. You may still have a little bleeding if you miss some spots, but it won't be near as bad. So I just do that and let that dry. And then I'm going to be using several different colors. I'm going to be using white, my gold leaf Krylon paint pen. It is amazing. It's a gold leafing pen. I also will have that linked in the description. I use this thing for everything. If you want a true shiny gold look at me, this is the pen. I'm like, oh, I'm confused. So I'm going to be using the white for all of the smaller wording, and then the gold for the darling and the fly, because I want those words to jump out at you. So I'm using just plain white acrylic paint for all of the words, and then my Krylon gold pen for the bigger words. And then I did 2 coats of all of those on there. And then for the third coat that I did for the white on the top row, so the What If I Fall, I decided I wanted that to stand out just a little bit because it's, you know, it would be a different person talking. So I had mixed up this off-white color that I used for several projects ago. And I just figured I'd throw that on there because it'd be just enough of a difference for you to tell without it standing out or looking like it doesn't fit in. So I did that. Once that was dry, I was ready to remove my contact paper. This is so satisfying, peeling it back, removing all of the little, you know, weeding out all of the little inserts from the letters and things. And then I went ahead and took my weeder. I did have a couple spots just where it wasn't sticking completely. And I scraped away the paint that bled under, cleaned up the lines of the letters, and then I was ready to work on the next transfer. Now, I am using the feathers. They are very small detail, and they're like that gold, I don't know if it's gold leaf or foil or what it is, but when I used the letterings on the book set, I did have a hard time getting that to stick too, and those were like, I mean, not super thick, but they were letters, so they were a little thicker. I'm thinking it might just be the gold, especially mixed with those really small details, because on the small details of the spring transfer, I had to rub those a little extra hard too. So I picked out the feathers that I wanted, laid them out, kind of got a visual of what I wanted to do, you know, got them cut out and was ready to apply them. I applied the first feather and I had issues immediately. When I was trying to remove the backing from it, it was not coming apart. It was just like sticking to itself and not working. So I slowly did it and got most of the feather off and thought I'd go ahead and try it anyway. I put it down, I rubbed it pretty vigorously because as I was trying to lift it up, it was not coming off. So I was just rubbing the crap out of that thing, okay? Nothing. So as you see, I'm just trying to slowly pull it up, rub it as I'm pulling up, nothing. It did not, bits and pieces stuck, but pretty much the whole feather came off. Luckily, there was a second one of those feathers in the pack, so I was like, you know what, let's try again. So I scraped off what little bit of the feather I could get off and then just tried to overlay it to where you wouldn't see too much of the mess underneath and tried again. I just took my time, and I mean, I had to push pretty hard and take the kind of the point of my palette. So like if you're using a credit card, use the corner and just really get in there and try to get many of those small details to transfer over. I got most of it, not all of it. I just really slowly, pretty much as I was peeling it back, just like pushing as hard as I can on it, pull it back, pushing as hard as I can. And it worked. It's very pretty, but my background is a lighter color, so you really can't see it. Like it's easier to see in person, but you have to like really get up on it to really be able to tell what it is because it is so small. My background is a little lighter, so if you're using these, I would suggest a darker background. And you also just like have to rub pretty vigorously. Now again, my contact paper wasn't sticking much to the sign. It could be that really fine glitter that's in the background. However, I have used the gold transfers on something else and had a similar issue. So I think it might just be a material thing, and then also those really fine details mixed with me having a glittery background. So just kind of keep all of that in mind. I just want to be very honest with you and, you know, kind of give you my thoughts and what I have going on. Also keep in mind the sheet is $1, so try it out for yourself. I went through and added the other two feathers that I wanted on this. Again, I just took my time and like really dug in there, trying really hard not to scratch up my project, but to get the feather to stick. And then I was done with this. So I might try them again, just kind of on a darker background, a very flat, nothing else going on in the background, and see how they work for me then. They're very pretty, they're very elegant, I like them. It's just they were a pain in the tush to get to stick. Once that was done, everything was ready, you know it, I sealed it with polyacrylic. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was gonna stay in place and not just scratch off after I had put all of that effort into making this sign. Once that was dry, I needed a hanger for it. I'm just going to do a cute ribbon hanger. I have some thin white ribbon and some gold ribbon that I'm going to cut down in half down the middle. That way it can be as thin as the white, and I'm just going to cut it, tie it around to make a little fun frilled for the top. And then this project is done too. So I would love to know have you guys used these transfers before? Like, it doesn't have to be the feathers, but any of these really small gold ones. Are you having issues? And do you have advice for me? Is there something I could do better? I would love to know, just learning how to do them. And I think they're beautiful. I think they turn out great once they work. Could be operator error. What can I say? All right. The third project is going to be the cork paper. So I have this frame that I had picked up. I am going to be using some white chalk paint mixed with a little bit of water. I do this because chalk paint's very thick, and if you want it to go on smoother and spread a little easier, you can add a little bit of water, and it just gives it just that little bit of moisture it needs to spread nice and smooth. If also use a really fine soft bristle, and that will help take away any of the extra bristle marks or brush strokes that you might be seeing in your project. I want this to be a rustic piece too, however, I want it to look a lot more put together, so I made sure that I don't have any uneven strokes, that I have it, you know, all one direction, flowing from one side to the other. I do this all the way around the frame, and then I also painted the inside, the face of the frame. I'm going to be covering it up, but I know I'm going to be leaving some small gaps. So I want to make sure that the colors match. Seems how this is like more of a manila color in the background. So once that dries, I'm ready to distress. I'm going to be just sanding down all of the hard edges and the corners and stuff to get the distressed look that I desire. Cleaning it up, and then you guessed it again, polyacrylic to seal it in. I don't always use polyacrylic. I also use like the Waverly clear wax. I also use a lot of Rust-Oleum 2X clear matte spray, and my polyacrylic is a matte as well. But it's cold outside, so spray painting right now is not it. So this is what works. I also really like knowing that I have a really good coverage because I do paint it on myself. So moving on from here, we're gonna be working with the cork paper. I usually do my backgrounds with balsa wood. So if you're new to my channel, it's just this really light wood that you can pick up at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. And I really like the width and things that of the one that I buy. So I'm gonna be using that as my template on what size to cut down my cork paper to. So I'm going to just be measuring out how wide it needs to be to fit into the frame. Go ahead and cutting that off. I just cut that with scissors. It's super easy to cut. Just take your time to make sure you have nice even cuts and nice straight cuts. And it was as simple as that. So after that, I measured down, you know, the width of everything, laid them into the background how I thought I wanted them, trimmed off any excess. With any project, it's easier to cut it a little bigger because you can always take off and trim as you need, rather than to just lop off a chunk and then kind of be screwed. So I'm just slowly trimming away as I need and see fit, and then I'm ready to attach it to the background. Now, I've never used this before, so I stuck it to my finger and I shook it pretty hard to see if it would fall off, but the adhesive on this is actually pretty good. I was pretty surprised. It's one of those, if it sticks to your finger, you have to physically pull it off with your other hand. You can't just get it off. So I did that, but I am going to be attaching another piece to this, so I do want to make sure it's nice and secure. I went ahead and dabbed a little bit of E6000 to the back of it just to make sure it stays, and then I placed it back down and put all of the pieces in the back of the frame. So I'm leaving a little gap because I want it to have kind of like that shiplap feel, but obviously it's cork, so whatever. I like it, leave me alone. And then I'm doing that for all of the pieces, and I am ready to finish up this sign. Originally, I was going to do a cute bee-related sign, but I had thrifted this super cute cactus. I love this little thing. I mean, look at it. It's so cute. So I thought that this would match up perfectly with this frame. So I'm going to give him a little paint. I have Sage and Seaside Villa from Folk Art that I'm going to be using for this piece, and I'm just going to paint him up, give him a couple coats, and then sand him back down to distress him to make him kind of match the rest of the look of the frame. So I'm using a really, I don't know what grit the sandpaper is, but it's really rough because I knew I wanted this to be a pretty heavy distress. After I've wiped that down and clean, I'm just gonna go back in with my white chalk paint and paint back in all the little prickles. What are these called? They're spines, prickles. They're prickly parts, okay? We're gonna paint those back on, and then we're gonna seal it with some polyacrylic just to make sure it's nice and good to go. And then we're going to attach it to the frame. I'm going to be using some E6000 and hot glue to do this. The hot glue for an instant set, the E6000, just to make sure it's not going anywhere in the long run. But can we also talk about the E6000? Do any of you guys have an E6000 bottle that you don't have to empty from the back? Like, I would pay a little extra to have a container that works. I bought this brand new and couldn't even get the cap off. So I've been doing it from the bottom, which it busted out the bottom anyway. So it's just like, come on. All right, I digress. It's very irritating. Anyway, so I'm just gonna center this up, push it down, and this project is complete as well. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments. Which one of these was your favorite? Are you gonna give any of these a try? Put your own twist on it. Would love to hear from you. I want to give a shout out to Matthew from Go Tips. He is the MVP, guys. He gives me all of the interactions. He is commenting, he is liking, he is giving me great engagements on my videos, and I truly, truly appreciate that. If any of you guys want a shout out personally or for your channel, go comment on some of my some of my videos. Give me some likes, do some great interactions, and I would love to give you a shout out too. I'm going to mention that I have a Facebook group that I started for creators. If you are crafty, like art, not great at art, but just still want to share, come on over. We would love to have you. It's just a place for you guys to share your projects too, whether it's inspired by me, one of your other favorite YouTube creators, or something that you came up with yourself. We would love to see it, encourage you, and share some ideas with each other. I have just started it, so it's just starting out, and it needs people like you. So I'll link it in the description, and we hope to see you there. I am going to wrap this up. I really appreciate you guys being here. Please give me a like if you like this context, if you think I did a good job. Subscribe if you're new here. We would love to have you here for our crafting journey. I'm going to take you in for a closer look, and I will see you next time.